When people think of the gold rush, they imagine hope, ambition, and instant riches. But the truth is far darker and far more disturbing because these towns weren't built on dreams. They were built on chaos. These are 17 dark secrets of gold rush towns that were completely lawless and why history tried to bury them. When people think of the gold rush, they imagine hope, ambition, and instant riches. But the truth is far darker and far more disturbing because these towns weren't built on dreams. They were built on chaos. These are 17 dark secrets of gold rush towns that were completely lawless and why history tried to bury them. On number 17, law didn't exist. Only power did, most believe. There were sheriffs and courts keeping order. But in reality, many towns had no legal system at all. Disputes weren't settled in courtrooms. They were settled in the street with bullets. Whoever was stronger, faster, or more feared decided what was right. Justice wasn't blind. It was violent. On number 16, people were killed over inches of land. You think people fought over gold, but often they fought over mere inches of dirt. A slight shift in a mining claim could mean life or death. Men would wake up to find their land stolen overnight. And by sunset, someone was dead. Gold didn't just create greed, it erased all sense of restraint. On number 15, vigilante justice was more brutal than crime. Without law, communities created their own justice, but it wasn't justice, it was vengeance. Men were hanged without trials, accused without evidence. Sometimes, all it took was suspicion. In towns like San Francisco, vigilante groups executed dozens publicly. The line between criminal and executioner vanished completely. On number 14, saloons were war zones disguised as entertainment. To outsiders, saloons were lively social hubs. Inside, they were ticking time bombs. Alcohol flowed endlessly. Tempers rose quickly. Gunshots echoed between laughter and piano music. Fights broke out over cards, insults, even eye contact. On number 13, disease was more deadly than violence. People fear guns and knives, but in these towns, the real killer was invisible. Cholera, dysentery, smallpox. With no sanitation, no clean water, infections spread like wildfire. A single cough could wipe out entire camps. Death didn't need a weapon, it just needed proximity. On number 12, women were trapped in a system. They couldn't escape. The myth says women found opportunity too, but many were forced into something far darker. Brothels dominated these towns, and for many women, there was no choice. Debt, coercion, survival. Behind the lights and music were stories of control, abuse, and silence. Their suffering rarely made it into history. On number 11, theft wasn't a crime, it was survival. In a place with no rules, survival came first. Food, tools, gold, anything could be stolen, and it happened constantly. Men slept with weapons in hand. Trust was a weakness, because in these towns, taking from others wasn't shameful. It was necessary. On number 10, corpses were left in the streets. In civilized society, death is honored. Here, it was ignored. Bodies often lay where they fell, unclaimed, unburied. The smell of decay mixed with dust and smoke, a constant reminder that life was cheap and death even cheaper. On number 9, fires destroyed entire towns overnight. Wooden buildings, open flames, crowded spaces. All it took was one spark. Entire towns burned to the ground in hours. Screams filled the night as people ran with whatever they could carry, everything they built, gone by morning, and then they started again. On number 8, immigrants faced extreme violence. The gold rush attracted people from everywhere, but not everyone was welcomed. Chinese miners, Mexican workers were often targeted, beaten, robbed, driven out, sometimes killed simply for existing. The promise of opportunity came with brutal discrimination. On number 7, gambling ruined. More lives than gold created people didn't just lose money, they lost everything. Gold dust, property, even their lives. Cheating was common, and when discovered, it rarely ended peacefully. One bad hand could turn deadly in seconds. On number 6, water was more valuable than gold. You think gold was the most precious resource, but without water, it meant nothing. Control the water, control the miners. People sabotaged supply lines. Poison sources, entire operations collapsed, not from lack of gold, but lack of survival. On number 5, murder often went unpunished. In a lawless town, who investigates a murder? No one. Killings were rarely solved. Witnesses stayed silent. Fear controlled everything. And the killer often walked freely among the living. On number 4, mental breakdown was common isolation, fear, exhaustion. Men spent months, even years, chasing something they might never find. The pressure broke them, paranoia, violence, madness. Some disappeared into the wilderness, never seen again.
On number 3, children grew up in pure chaos. There were no schools, no safety. Children witnessed violence daily, learned survival before morality. For them, brutality wasn't shocking. It was normal. On number 2, wealth rarely went to the miners. The dream was simple: find gold, become rich. But most miners found nothing. Instead, merchants, saloon owners, and suppliers made the real fortune. The system was built so that the dreamers stayed poor, and the opportunists thrived. On number 1, gold didn't build dreams, it destroyed them. This is the truth no one talks about. For every success story, there were thousands of failures, broken men, lost lives, forgotten graves. The gold rush didn't create prosperity. It exposed human nature at its darkest. Greed, violence, survival, all hidden beneath the shine of gold. Because when law disappears, when desperation takes over, civilization doesn't collapse slowly. It vanishes instantly. And what remains is something far more dangerous: human nature without limits. If you want more stories that history tried to hide, make sure you subscribe and step deeper into the darkness.